All right, everybody. It's your boys, Jordan and Will, Load the Box, back at it again with a fun. This is the most excited I think I've been to do a Load the Box since the Josh Dobbs sensational run in the middle of the season this year. And I might be even more excited to do this because I don't have any anxiety that the Vikings are going to lose a game this week. It's just all the Lions lost. We're going to talk about Kirk Cousins a little bit, which is one of my favorite things to talk. It's everyone's favorite thing to talk about, right? He's the quarterback of the team. I brought out the good denim for this show, and I probably would have put on a suit if I had the time to get dressed, but I'm just getting home after work. Will, the Lions, not in the Super Bowl. Eminem back at Mom's Spaghetti, making homemade spaghetti and, doing his 9 to 5, I guess. What are your thoughts?
Oh, this game. It was one of those games where, there's so many things to say. At halftime, it just felt like this, from sitting there as completely a Vikings fan perspective, seeing just like this sea of blue was cascading on the San Francisco Bay, and it was just about to make this whole Lions thing unpalatable for Vikings fans. This team that has, long suffered in that they haven't, made the playoffs or won the division, in so long, hadn't won a playoff game in so long, hadn't advanced this far in so long. And it just kind of felt like this inevitable heartache for Vikings fans that the team that has been the doormat of the NFC North would be the team that would beat them to the Super Bowl. Vikings haven't been to the Super Bowl in, goodness, what is it, 30, 40 years at this point?
Yeah.
And the Lions are going to get there, and who knows? At that point, all bets are off. So that's how it started, and then they full on lioned in the second half. I have so many thoughts from it, but we can focus on the second half because that's where the game was won and lost. The first half was outstanding by Detroit, about as dominant as you could have imagined. They executed precisely. They scored, I think, on every drive. Maybe they punted once. And they were putting all of the pressure back on the 49ers. It was a very masterful performance by Detroit. Second half was a completely different story. What do you want to focus on from the second half?
I like that you said they full on Lions it, and I thought that was a good way of putting it because it really was and apparently I feel like I'm on an island here. There's a couple of guys on X who share my hatred of Detroit and this very bitter, all of a sudden rivalry that I have with Detroit because, of their loud, obnoxious fans. They have a lot of really good, fun fans that I'm sure are great people, but the worst fans are the loudest. And so I've seen the bad side of their fan base, and so I hate them with all of my heart now. But I want to focus on specifically, Detroit's. I don't want to take a victory lap too much because I feel like me and you have both been saying since we started talking about Detroit, and we've been talking about them for like a month now. It's just been a month of shows talking about Detroit, and maybe the Rams will get them. Nope. Maybe Tampa Bay can get them. Nope. Hopefully San Francisco, and now we're kind of celebrating their downfall. But we kept saying the same thing about Dan Campbell and his decisions to go for it on fourth down instead of kicking like a 40-yard field goal that would have, ultimately ended up tying the game. And I'm not going to do they lost by 3, so if they kick, it's a tie game, because that changes everything. But that's the thing. Kicking that field goal changes everything if you get those points, because now maybe San Francisco pushes a little bit harder. Maybe San Francisco, they had a chance to go up 17 again because San Francisco didn't come right out of the half and go down the field and score a touchdown. San Francisco went down, got a field goal, made it 2 possessions, and then Detroit had a chance to go kick it back up to 17. They didn't, and San Francisco players were quoted after the game saying that's kind of when they knew they had a good shot at doing, tying the biggest comeback in championship game history. So I don't want to take a victory lap and say we called that, because that is as obvious as in the beginning. Like, let's go to August. Let's fast forward to August. That would be as obvious as me saying, yeah, you know what, Will? Here's a hot take. If the Chiefs stay healthy, I think they're going to be in the playoffs this season. I think they are almost a lock to make the... That's not a hot take. That's just something... That's a fact of life. That's something that's going to happen. And being the ballsy, gutsy coach that is constantly going for it and passing up points, wow, that's so cool that you get it most of the time. In the biggest moments, whenever you needed it, you failed on 2 fourth down conversions that end up costing you a potential 6 points in a game that you had such a cushion, you kind of just needed to ice it out. And, I get that there were some drops on the fourth down plays. There was one where Goff just threw a bad ball, but there was one where I think Josh Reynolds had a, ball kind of hit him in the hands and he just dropped it. It wasn't a great pass. It was a good enough pass. That was 100% on Josh Reynolds for dropping it. But I just think that it feels good to be able to say, I will take a little bit of a victory lap, because me and you both hammered this whole Dan Campbell's going to cost him. Dan Campbell's going to cost him. And now we do get to see it come to fruition. Dan Campbell costed this team. And, there's a lot of jokes going around, in the NFL media world about Detroit, because Ben Johnson announced he's not taking a head coaching job. He has unfinished business in Detroit. And so that's cool. That's, that was a key reason we said this team was going to regress next year. And so that's off the table. They get their offensive coordinator back. That's really cool for them. There's been a lot of jokes made about maybe Dan Campbell's on the hot seat because he went for it and blah, blah, blah. No, he's not. But
absolutely not.
I do like those jokes, and saying, maybe Dan Campbell was on the hot seat. He goes for it all the time, and it finally bites him in the butt, and you can't win a Super Bowl that way, and everybody said it, and it bit him in the butt. So that was my big takeaway from that second half. How about you? Maybe give some flowers to San Francisco. I have to say that. But
yeah, I mean, one just quick thing on Dan Campbell, because the guy obviously has been an architect of this organization and this culture just completely doing a 180. 3 years ago, they were abysmal. His first year, they were terrible. But he was beginning to sow the seeds of the newness that this franchise now has. And, I mean, they got from, 3 wins his first year to the NFC Championship game in his third year. So the team wouldn't have been there without him. But I also believe, like you said, that he was a big reason why they didn't win. It's very much a, flip side of what Kansas City did in their game against Baltimore. And I have to give credit a little bit to Nick Wright from First Things First, because he was calling this out, how Kansas City, basically, when they got up 10, they played ball control. Yep. And I think there's a little bit of homerism in his takes because he's such a Chiefs diehard. But Kansas City basically decided in the second half, we're not going to make mistakes. We're just going to keep the ball away, and we're just going to run the clock out. And that approach worked with a 10-point lead. The Lions had a 17-point lead. And yes, you don't change who you are, but the Lions in the second half made a strange decision to stop running the ball with as much ferocity, whether that was Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling or what. But at some point, they decided we're not going to run as much. We're going to rely on Jared Goff. And the Lions are only who they are because of the combination and the marriage of the run and the pass, and they went away from one of them. That isn't necessarily on Dan Campbell. I would, you credit more of that probably to Ben Johnson, the guy who's getting all the limos sent to his house for interviews and everything. But it is a head coaching decision on game plan. And in the second half, the game plan was weird. With a 3-score lead, your job is not to be flashy. Your job is not to convert fourth downs. Your job is to win the game. And unless you have such little faith in your kicker, I'm sorry, I don't care about the win probability models. I don't care about the analytics in the playoffs. You kick the ball to take multiple score leads. It's pretty simple in that situation, unless you just don't think your kicker can make a 45-yard field goal. And then we have bigger problems if that's the case. But
100%.
I understand if that's week 4 and you're like trying to make a statement, you're trying to just, build culture with your team. You win that game, you're in the Super Bowl
Against a team you've already beaten this year.
Exactly, and you go up 3 scores in the third quarter with 25 minutes left in the season. San Francisco's hope is going to continue to dwindle, and it's just from an objective football perspective, watching that game was almost frustrating. Seeing the stubbornness of Dan Campbell of course we're going for it, and you have to have an understanding of the situation. I also think that in the fourth quarter, when you when you go for it on fourth down, you're down 3. Again, unless you don't trust the kicker, you tie the game. That at that point, there's not a clear line to convert this. We will score a touchdown. It was fourth down at like the 30-yard line. It's not like if you get those 3 yards, you're automatically in touchdown range. You still have to convert another 1 or 2 first downs to even get into the, inside the 10. So I say all that because it just felt like those fourth down attempts were just far too predictable and far too aggressive. And it's almost just maddening to think about, and it's predictable, like we said, but it's maddening to think that that's what they did to sort of do themselves in. Last thing on this whole, criticizing the game plan rant. I've heard some people harping for one on Dan Campbell for running the ball on third down inside the whatever with I think it was at the 1 yard line, costing a timeout. They ended up having to burn a timeout. First of all, that's not Dan Campbell's fault, unless he doesn't call plays. Just so we're aware here, people. Second of all, I do not fault Ben Johnson for running the ball. People were crushing him because of the result. But in that case, you kind of believe your team can get you a yard. And especially with how good their offensive line is and how strong their running backs are, you think that you can get a yard. And would you rather have David Montgomery plow somebody over or trust Jared Goff to make a play? And granted, Goff made a play the next one, found Williams for a touchdown. But I don't hate the play call. Honestly, as I was sitting there watching it as a, air quotes 49ers fan, I was hoping that they were going to throw on third down. I was the moment when Goff handed it off, I was like, oh crap, here's a touchdown. Obviously, they got the stop, and the rest is history. But I think all the piling on that third down call is a little bit ridiculous because if he scores a touchdown there, no one questions it. Anyway.
Yeah, I want to point out, I love what you brought up about you kick the field goal to take a multiple possession lead, because I don't think the criticism of Dan Campbell would be nearly as much, because it does kind of feel like criticizing the result more than the decision. But I'm criticizing the decision to not go up 17. If you were up 12 or 10, yeah, go for it. It's 2 possessions. It's going to still be 2 possessions if you kick. You might as well try to extend this drive, eat more clock, potentially make it 3 possessions by scoring a touchdown. I'd get it. But to pass up an opportunity to make it a 3-possession game, that's massive. I mean, that's and also these, the analytics models, and I'm not one of these. I look like it, but I'm not one of these analytics are stupid. I hate them. I actually love analytics. I love what they do to the game.
Yeah, same.
I love the graphics saying, there's a 92.7% chance that you will get this if you go, and how it swings win probability. I love stuff like that. But all of that to say, analytics can't account for how the fans in San Francisco feel if they see their team come out of halftime, they're probably a little disappointed in the field goal. Because it still feels like it's a 2-possession game. Detroit's strength is their offense. Like, this still doesn't feel good. We have to get 2 touchdowns. You go for that, and you don't get it. And now the fans are like, oh crap, we see it. We see the comeback. We see the path. It's crystal clear. It's as good as a turnover. You might as well tell Jared Goff to just hike the ball, hand it to, Bosa, and then tackle Bosa. And it's the same play. So it just doesn't look bad on Goff's stat line. So I do have to say, and this has nothing to do with the game. This just has to do, this is just me griping about, the underdog Lions, who, by the way, I went back, I did the research. They were favored. They played 20 games this season, right? 17-game season, 3 playoff games. They were favored in 16 of 20 games this season. And they, I think, were winless. No, that's a lie. They went 1-3 in their underdog games. They beat the Chiefs, and then they got blown out by the Ravens, beat by the Cowboys because they tried to trick the Cowboys and just tricked the refs. And then they lost to San Francisco in embarrassing fashion, may I add. But this underdog Lions storyline, I'm ready for it to die, but I know it's not going to, because people are having the cake and they are they're having it and eating it, or whatever that stupid expression is. Well, the Lions are such underdogs. They are going to be 10.5, 11.5 over/under wins next year. They are going to be favorites to win the division next year, and they will probably be favored in 16 in the regular season, 15 games that they play next season, if health is perfect across the board and everything. I mean, I'm just so tired of this underdog thing. It's why I've started to hate the Lions in such a way, because I'm tired of hearing, the underdog Lions, the underdog Lions. I get that their city sucks. Not even their city, but like their Spouts city sucks. They haven't been relevant in a really, really long time. The Tigers stink. The Lions have stunk. All this stuff, whatever. But I just... Oh, man, it felt good. It felt so good to watch him lose and to watch Brock Purdy make that comeback. I was playing video games on, at my desk, and I had the game on a second monitor, and I'm playing with one of my buddies, and there was a point where, my daughter is trying to go to sleep, and my wife is, getting her to go to bed, getting wound down for the evening, and I jump up, and I'm like, he fumbled! Because Jahmyr Gibbs put the ball on the ground, and it was fun. It was a very fun game. To the good Detroit fans, if you have found yourself here, welcome. I don't know why you're here, but welcome. Legitimately, there is a piece of me. I do get the, hey, they've suffered a long time. Let's be nice and let's be, blah, blah, blah. But no, we can't let them get to the Super Bowl and maybe win a Super Bowl before us. You think they won't immediately jump up to where the Packers and Chicago fans sit, gloating about how, what's the Vikings trophy case look like? That's the first joke that every one of them will make. So they're all traitors. I'm happy about one thing. This is a rivalry now. I'm excited to play the Lions next season. I gotta get them. I'm at a point now where it's like the Packers gotta get them. Chicago, I'm confident we will get them. They aren't very good. And now it's Detroit. We have to go beat Detroit, because I need to beat Detroit. And so, yeah, man, that was a fun game. I don't have anything else to bring up about it. I did want to do this. I'm going to do my camera doesn't want. I'm dancing on their grave. We did say we were going to dance on their graves. So I am dancing on, here, I'll do in my chair, just dancing on the Lions' graves. I'll let you get to your final thoughts on this, then we'll move on.
We are understandably making these comments tongue-in-cheek because the Vikings have been eliminated for about a month. So there's that whole piece to this that we, have to acknowledge. But 2 final things on the Lions. I said Jared Goff was bad outdoors. He was bad outdoors again. He was fine in the first half. Didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't terrible. He didn't have any turnovers. But Jared Goff was not dome Jared Goff, and that's what we've talked about all year. Last thing I will say on the Lions, I definitely can empathize and appreciate what the Lions fans have been through from the perspective of being a Twins fan. Because, I had never witnessed the Twins win a playoff game, let alone a playoff series in my entire life. The last time they won a playoff series, I was 7, 6, and I didn't care about baseball yet. And so, it was not even on my radar. So witnessing them in person win a playoff series this year, it was fantastic. It was like a dream. So to those Lions fans, I understand that, and I can appreciate the joy and now the heartbreak that you've endured over the last month. Fun ride for you guys, I'm sure, and it's one that you won't forget. I mean, I won't even forget the Vikings 2022 season. They didn't even win a playoff game last year. Last year was just a blast in other ways. So
yeah,
I'm sure Lions fans will treasure this season as they should. It's not all about winning Super Bowls. There's a lot to just the ride that makes it fun, and I think this year had to have been very fun for them.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say about San Francisco? I mean, I think there's a lot we could say, but
I don't want to make a Super
to...
Bowl pick yet. Next week's show is still up in the air. There might be some exciting things happening at Load the Box that we might be doing next week, so I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to, we won't get into the weeds too much, but I think San Francisco is really good, and I think that this idea that Brock Purdy is just some game manager, scrub, I think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think he's a definite upgrade. I think he is, and this is maybe a hot take, and this is gonna maybe bite me in the hind end and ruin my credibility, but I also loved Zach Wilson, so maybe you shouldn't listen to me about quarterbacks anyway. But I mean, I think Brock Purdy is the total package in comparison. So I'm not saying he's better in all facets or that he's worse in all facets. I think he is about as good as Kirk Cousins. I think that if the Niners went to Kirko, it would be a semi-lateral move, especially when you consider the money that they make and the fact that they're able to have the team around Brock Purdy that they do have. I think it's more comparable than we would want. Kirk might still is probably better, but he's got experience, and I'm excited to watch Brock Purdy. Maybe this will bite me in the butt because I've always been a big Tom Brady guy. I've always loved Tom Brady because he never really did anything to the Vikings. It was always the AFC teams that he would break their hearts every year. So maybe this is my payback. Purdy's going to end up, ripping every fan base in the NFC's hearts out of their chest. And, my Bengals buddies can all say, yeah, we love Brock Purdy. We just like the greatness and all the bullcrap things I say about Tom Brady. I wanted to say that. They look good. I don't. If you see somebody picking this Chiefs game to be like a blowout just because they have Patrick Mahomes and the other team has Mr. Irrelevant, I think you're listening to the wrong type of show. I disagree with that take.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 49ers are an incredible team built top to bottom. I think that's been, pretty well documented. And to your point, Jordan, if you think that Mahomes by himself is, such a great benefit over Purdy that they're going to blow him out, I think that'd be silly. I think we can do Super Bowl picks next week, but one thing I will say, without even, I don't even need to get into the where Purdy ranks and is he better than Kirk or is he better than Dak or any of that stuff. I, for one, have not been generally impressed by Brock Purdy throughout the season. I thought he was bad, and for most of the game against Green Bay, I thought he had multiple bad throws against the Lions, 3 of which could have and probably should have been picked off. Only one of them was. So there were moments where it's ugh, and I definitely do not have a ton of confidence when I see him drop back. Part of that I think is because he's short, and it looks like he's just about to get swallowed up by 300-pound men. But what I saw on Sunday, I have to give him respect for because, yeah, his passer rating was 89, whatever. He had the same passer rating as Goff for the day, but if you watch the game, it's clear who played better. And the other thing that was impressive to me and sort of finally gave me the respect for Purdy that I really haven't had for most of the season is that he was making plays. It was not just drop back, top of your drop, throw the ball. It was scrambling around. He had a few runs for one thing for first downs that were big. But he also had some off schedule, off script plays where he had to run outside the pocket and make a throw on the run.
He had a
one
couple
that was
where it
across
looked
his
like
body.
he was dead to rights too, where
Yeah.
a defender, one of those 300-pound men, was about to swallow him, and in a similar fashion to Case Keenum in 2017, he magicianed his way out of it. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, and so like there were plays like that where I was finally like, oh, this kid can play. And maybe that's because I haven't watched enough 49ers games. Maybe that's a little bit of from a distance fan perspective of not appreciating what he's done, but seeing him make some of those throws under duress, on the move, moving to his left. Again, he probably had 3 or 4 throws where I would say, don't do that ever again. But he's also only been in the league for 2 years. And Justin Fields has been in the league for what, 3 or 4 years, and he's not making those plays. So,
and I think it's unfair the criticism that he gets for like having a good team around him, or like
it's not his fault.
having a good head coach. Like Mahomes came into the league, and obviously, like you can just see it with your eyes who the better quarterback is. But like Mahomes came into the league, and nobody said like, well, he's got Andy Reid and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I mean, anybody could succeed in that system. No, everyone was like, do you see him throw a ball with his left hand? Like that was crazy. It was like he was lighting the league up. And Purdy's not doing any of that stuff, but he does he's got good weapons and a pretty good line. He has the best running back in football. The defense is serviceable. It's really not as good as everyone thinks it is, but it's okay. And, like you said, he just went out there and he's a gamer, and he went out there and made the plays that needed to be made. And now he's playing in a Super Bowl, which is, crazy for Mr. Irrelevant 2 or 3 years ago. So speaking
granted, Jimmy Garoppolo made a Super Bowl too, right? So it's not, that doesn't mean anything by itself. But I think what I want to say as a final thought on Purdy, and then we can talk about our quarterback. There is something that just drives me nuts about this whole discussion that we never bring up, is that he's got so much of his career left. Why can't we just talk about the fact that his second-year quarterback is playing well, probably will never be a generational talent, but what he's doing with this team is remarkable. And why do we have to talk about where he ranks in, the top whatever quarterbacks of the league? Why do we have to talk about whether or not he's better than Tua, or if he's as good as Dak or any of that stuff? Because to your point, he was given a team to do a job, and they are one step away from doing that job.
Yep.
If he wins the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, that doesn't make him better than Lamar Jackson. Just because he has a Super Bowl and Lamar doesn't. That doesn't make him better than Joe Burrow.
What will the daily talk shows talk about? And I joke about how we don't want to tone into that, but that legitimately is like, look, man, there's like 10 business days between championship game and last show before the Super Bowl. We got to fill it with something. Let's do 6 days worth of, is Brock Purdy better than insult historically considered great quote, like yesterday on First Things First, which I think it's no secret we love that show on this channel. And I like yesterday, Chris Broussard, who I love and think is a genius, he was talking about how his ceiling is like Drew Brees, and he thinks he could develop into Drew Brees, and he's very non-committal with those takes, but they don't need the plug. They're one of the most popular shows out there. But no, I do. That's really why everyone has those conversations, and I agree with you. I do think they're silly to have. I like to do stuff like that just for my own, like, it's fun it's fun, like, bow talk, I guess, that people will have, or just chit-chatting with your buddies. But I agree with you. Just like, enjoy Mr. Irrelevant. The actual underdog story was Brock Purdy in these playoffs. It was never the favored in 16 out of 20 Lions, 80% favored in their games Lions. It was Mr. Irrelevant driving a team all the way to the Super Bowl. That was the real underdog story that the media missed. But I want to talk. You want to talk about our quarterback? Because I have some thoughts.
Yeah, our quarterback for at least another month.
Yeah, at least. at a minimum for another month before he may go on to, be with Raheem Morris. Is that his name in Atlanta?
I think so.
Yeah, the Sun God, as people called him. Yeah, so Kirk Cousins, there was a report that came out that the deal is going to be 2 years, $90 million. That's the deal. And it was kind of taken out of context, I think, because if you actually look at what the article said, it never said, Cousins has made it clear he wants this. It was more along the lines of there are several teams interested in him, so there's going to be a bidding war. And that bidding war could drive upwards of 2 years, $90 million. But we're going to stick with that 2 years, $90 million quote, if you will, because it's flashy and it's a good headline. And I want to quickly, before we do the should we, will they, before we do these questions, I want to explain the how behind this contract, and I have props for this. This is a whole bit that I have ready. And my wife just got home, so my dog's probably about to start going crazy. But the how behind this, if you are a Madden GM like I am, you know that the Vikings have like $28 million in cap space, and if Cousins wants $45 million per year, that doesn't equate, right? That's a problem. And so I went into the deep, dark, murky depths of X.com comments to start looking for, the cap wizards or the cap magicians, I'll call them, to explain it to me and to make it make sense. And what I found was someone gave me an example where they extended Cousins for 3 seasons, and what they did was truly a magic trick. They said this is where the prop comes in. This is the prop. This is we'll call it the rag of savings. And they waived the rag, and they said, hey, we can add Kirk Cousins back on the team for 3 years. It's only going to cost $3 million extra in 2024. So it's going to be 31 because we owe him 28, right? So we're going to be accounting money on the books. And then what they did was they did the trick behind my head. They added like 6 void years on, and they were paying Cousins like $20 million in 2029. Like, what? And so, let's factor this in. There are going to be some void years. So if it is a 2-year contract for Cousins, even with a hometown discount, we will be paying Cousins well into potentially his retirement. So let's factor that in, but that's the how behind it. Will, I'll let you start us off while I mute my mic and get everything settled in my home. Would you do 2 years, $90 million? And then secondary question, potentially, do you have like a max that you would go for Cousins, like per year on a year-to-year basis?
To your point about the cap wizards, a lot of this has to do with them. Or not them, but with what we can do with the cap, right? Because, heck, you could justify giving him $60 million if you were willing to, kick the can down the road for 10 years. There's all those things that you could do. That's why when we look at contracts as a sticker price, it's just a little bit disingenuous because, like, Shohei Ohtani is a great example. He got that $700 million contract from the Dodgers, $700 million for 10 years. But he's only getting paid $2 million for the 10 years of the contract. He gets the rest of it after the contract ends because he wants to make his Dodgers teams, when he's there, the most competitive as possible. It's ridiculous. The Dodgers are going to win 9 World Series in the next 10 years. It's very sad.
Might just win a Super Bowl with how stacked their baseball team is. That is in the cards that they switch spouts.
It's unbelievable. But so there's tons of different cap gymnastics that you can do. But when you say something like, Shohei's making $700 million in 10 years, it's like, well, that's not actually true. So with this situation, I'm not going more than 3 years. 3 years would be the most. And at that rate, I would have to be getting a little bit lower annual value. I think, if I had to put a number on it, 45 is probably about the most that I would even consider per year. The guaranteed money thing, everyone freaks out about that. I don't really. It's, you could say like, oh, he's coming off an injury, but I don't think historically Achilles injuries really rear their ugly heads unless you come back too early. And I'm not a physical therapist or a doctor, so I could be wrong on that. But it's not like you're coming back from a torn ACL and you're just not going to be the same. And as what Kirk has said in the past, I'm a pocket passer. Like, he doesn't have to run around a whole lot. If this is Justin Jefferson, we might have a little bit more to worry about. So I think to that point, I would be okay entering that threshold. I would much prefer to pay him sub 40. And the report about 90 is more just the reporter from the Pioneer Press, Charlie Walters, just saying that's what the buzz has been because multiple teams are interested. So yeah, like I said, if I had to get specific, 45 is the most I would do. 3 years is the most I would do. Guaranteed money, whatever. He's probably going to meet the incentives anyways. So
right. Well,
what does it matter?
I find that, like, a couple of years ago, whenever he first came here, I guess it's been 6 years, I'm very old, but when he first came to Minnesota, everyone was like, oh my gosh, fully guaranteed $84 million contract. And it's like, well, yeah, but, like, other contracts are worth, like, $200 million, but only, like, 90 of it's guaranteed. So there's there's still more guaranteed money in there. It's the whole debate over fully guaranteed contracts has always been dumb to me, because it's like, yeah, I get that they report that you're making more money than you actually make, but like there's still guarantees in there. Like there's two separate versions of every contract. I don't think the 3 years, $84 million that we gave Kirk bit us in the hind end in any way. Like, I don't think that was, shucks, if it was 3 years, $92 million with 84 guaranteed, would that have changed anything? No, it still would have been 28 mil or whatever math's out to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead.
I was going to ask you a question, but you go ahead first and then I'll ask it. I
just really quickly wanted to tell a very gross story, and I hate when I come up with a good metaphor because I have to say it. It's like an impulse. And I'll try to make this very quick, but either this, like a one summer or 2 summers ago, this is where it gets gross. I had an ingrown toenail, and I know that's yucky, and I'm not going to put pictures of it up or anything, but I tried some at-home remedies, couldn't get rid of it. So I finally went and saw a podiatrist, and I told the podiatrist when I walked in the office, I said, I know it's funny, I'm a big guy. I'm terrified of needles. I shake at the sight. I just don't do needles well. It's not my strong suit. And so the podiatrist examined me and he said, okay, I'm going to give you an antibiotic and I'm going to, give you like a routine to start doing at home to take care of the toe. And I said, wait, I came in here for you to numb my toe and cut my toe off, basically. I came in to get this fixed. And he said, but I thought you said you were afraid of needles. And I said, I am. That was just a warning that I'm going to whimper like a baby in the chair. Fix me. And that's where the Vikings are at this point with Kirk Cousins, in my opinion. $28 million is a ton of money to just eat on the chin. And we're not actually paying it to Cousins. We already gave him that money. It's just we have to, take the medicine
account for it.
Yeah, we have to account for it now. And I get I'm afraid of needles. Vikings fans were afraid of not having a quarterback. We've had stability at the position for the first time since Talkington, maybe Culpepper, but stability is really, really good. I love it. But we can take our medicine, and my foot feels so much better now. I don't limp on it ever. I go golfing all the time in the summer. It's great. Now that I went and I took my medicine, I got my shots. I think it's time we just take it on the chin, unless the deal is in the low 30s for me. And I think you just take it on the chin. I'm afraid what is motivating these Vikings fans to need to sign Cousins back is we're so afraid of Lions fans 6969 on Twitter or X, what's his name, Peter Bukowski, these people, because we all clowned Green Bay when Zadarius Smith was getting paid by Green Bay to play for us. I think there's a lot of people that are like, well, what if he goes to Atlanta and he wins and he makes the play? What if they make a championship game? God forbid. What if they win a Super Bowl with Kirk? We're gonna look like idiots. We're gonna look like dummies. And it's like, but what if you like trade up for Jaden Daniels and you end up having like an MVP caliber quarterback for 20 years? You know, like there's some give and take here. So I would love to see Kirk back, but I agree with what Kwesi's been saying. It has to be a good deal for both sides. And a good deal for Kirk Cousins is not a good deal for the Vikings. And a good deal for the Vikings is not a good deal for Kirk Cousins. So I think they'll fall away. I do love no one knows. No, we could be doing an emergency show tomorrow because they've decided they want to, merge up and make a deal happen before whatever. But no one knows. I think it's really fun. I know you had something before I, started talking about my feet.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I've got ingrown toenail problems myself. I tend to just bite a strap of leather and do it myself at home. Probably not, something I would recommend. But no, I was actually going to ask you a question along the lines of what you just sort of said. So I don't need to necessarily ask the question, but I will chime in on sort of where I'm at with this as well. I do think there is merit to both sides of this. I think if you sign Cousins, you can have a realistic argument for why you do it, and vice versa. The Vikings need to decide if they think they can compete right now to win a Super Bowl right now. And if they can't, if they don't think that the group that they have and will have with, the impending free agency of Danielle Hunter and Harrison Smith retiring or being cut and all those things, and the cap where it's at and the limitations on signing free agents, etc. And they probably need to take their medicine, like you said, and move away from this. That's a lot of work that needs to be done, and obviously they've been heads down doing that now for a month. But where I'm at, at this point, is I do believe that this team had enough to compete this season for a Super Bowl if Cousins didn't get injured.
Yeah.
So I think if I had to say pick a lane, I'd say pick that lane. Like, these windows are small, go for it. I think there's an idea that because the Vikings went 7-10, they're just going to be bad again next year. So why don't we just start over? I think we can't forget the context of why they ended up 7-10. But all of that said, like I said, preference from me would probably be like, let's keep trying to compete because I think we can actually do it with this squad. And I think the NFC is wide open.
Yeah, the idea just really quick, the idea that the Vikings are like 2 or 3 tiers below San Francisco, Detroit, like whatever powerhouse NFC team you want to talk about. Yeah. That's a clown show. I disagree completely. The Vikings competed in just about every game they had, except for the one game they started Jaren Hall. They're on the cusp. I really believe that. Please continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So to that point, like I can definitely see that this team can go. If they decided we need a mini rebuild, we're going to let Danielle go. We're going to go draft a bunch of edge rushers and defensive tackles and a quarterback. And we're going to keep Brian Flores. And we're going to build this thing. And we're going to get, we're going to shoot for a playoff berth next year. But, we're understanding that we have a rookie quarterback, etc. I would be okay with that position as well, because I think, like I said, I think there's merit to both. Last thing I'll say on this, if Kirk Cousins does go to Atlanta and the Vikings have a rookie quarterback next year, and you're not going to win a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I hope the Falcons win the Super Bowl. I want to see Kirk Cousins win a Super Bowl, whether he's wearing purple or not. And I know not everyone would feel that way, but being someone who has grown to be a appreciator of Kirk Cousins and everything he is and the man that he is and how he carries himself, I'd love to see him win a Super Bowl. Whether that's here or frankly even in New England. So
yeah.
Anyway, but that's this whole thing is so convoluted because it so hinges on what this team thinks they can be next season.
Yeah, and I love that you ended with that. I love when we have really good synergy, because I think if the Vikings feel, hey, we're close, we are on the cusp, we didn't have Jefferson for half the year. Cousins was out, when we were just starting to heat up. Without Jefferson, Cousins got injured. We get a couple of lucky health, a lucky health season. The moon, man. I mean, just it's a ship waiting to launch, and we're right there. But if that's where we're at, okay, sign Cousins and put the dead money until 2050. Go sign T. Higgins in free agency. Just put void years on the end of it. Do what trade your first round pick this year for Pat Surtain. Trade your first round pick next year for, I don't know, Aaron Donald or Christian Wilkins if he gets the franchise tag. Justin Madubuike if he gets the franchise tag. Go build a super team, but be cautious. You're going to tank yourself for years to come, and it's not a guarantee you're going to win a Super Bowl. The Rams did it. The Rams sold their soul, and they won a Super Bowl. But look back on their Super Bowl run. They had a really sweaty, very close to going home in the first round game against Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. And then the next game they had, I don't remember what the next game was. The NFC Championship game, I do remember San Francisco dropped an interception that would have locked them to the Super Bowl. And then they barely beat Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. They had a lot of things break their way. So even if you go out and you trade every draft pick and you dead money here, dead money there, you do whatever it takes to get there, you still need some bounces, man. You still need some luck. And that's what's so amazing about guys like Brady and Mahomes who are consistently there. It's like they're overcoming the luck factor because they stay healthy, and then they just are so good that they overcome that luck factor. And that's why I say, look, if we draft a quarterback and we stink, we will be in position to draft another quarterback in 3 years, so we can try again. If we go all in like this, because I don't want to do the, well, we'll start a 5th round pick at, safety next year and hope that he's good. And we'll draft a defensive lineman in the, 7th round and hope that he can contribute at a high level. I don't want to do that. No, I want either show me the plan for the next 7 years and have that plan laid out, or win the damn Super Bowl next year and go all in, chips on the table. And I know that's not really doable. That's not what the Vikings will do, but that's my 2 cents on it. I hate this. It's like the first time you go swimming in the summer. You dip your toe in and you're like, ooh, the water's kind of cold and it's only 78 degrees, but it's sunny. So, I don't know. I might get in, I might not get. No, just jump in, make plans for 4th of July to go swimming. Pick a side. Stop riding the fence.
So I'm going to say what I think the Vikings will do. This is not what like I said, I already said I'd love for them to sign Cousins and try this thing again. But I think that the Vikings are probably going to move on. I think, and I don't think that takes away from the fact that Kwesi and Kevin love Kirk. I think all of their words from October 29th to the end of the season were genuine. And I think Kevin and Kirk are going to be friends for the rest of their lives. And I think Kwesi grew an appreciation for Kirk, and I think he really appreciates him, would love to have him back. But this forward-facing, progressive, data analytics-driven team, organization, new front office is not going to go all in.
No, they're not.
After a year in which they went 7-10. They're not going to go all in on the what if, if nobody had gotten hurt, then we'll be good next year. I just can't see Kwesi being like, you know what, screw it. We're going to trade all of our draft picks and we're going to go get all the guys you were talking about. He said it as much in his introductory press conference or whatever 2 years ago. He said, we're not going to do the full Rams thing.
Yep.
And so I don't think it's going to happen. And
no, it's not.
I also just think they're smart enough to know that thinking that we're not sure our team is quite there yet, but I think, Kurt can get us to the playoffs and then we'll see what happens. I think they're smart enough to know that that's not the approach. So unless they're confident they can fix the defensive line and they can get some edge rushers, or they can keep Danielle Hunter and they can stay under the cap somehow, and they can tread water until TJ Hawkinson comes back and all those things. I think they'll probably do the move on thing and go get a rookie and see what we got. I mean, there is a level of excitement to that, right? Like watching potentially, the future of your franchise week one. Doesn't always work out like CJ Stroud. Just make sure people understand that the CJ Stroud revelation for the Texans, that is not normal for week one. Normally the first season's a little more rocky than that.
For every CJ Stroud, there's about 5 Mitch Trubiskys. Is that fair to say?
Like,
I don't know what I think I actually saw a stat on X the other day that it was like, hey, just so you guys know, first round quarterbacks like since 2016 are like it's like 50-50 on whether or not, and it's not it's like they're either like competent, and like Baker Mayfield I think is the line of competency, so they're either like Baker Mayfield or better, it's Josh Rosen, and it gets really bad. And I would be these will be my final thoughts, and I'll let you take us home because this has been a longer show, but I love this conversation. I love doing this kind of stuff. I'll really quickly remind you guys to shop for Unified Athletic Wear. Check out Will's Bad Loser blog, which is just absolutely electric. Really, really great stuff coming out there. Follow him at Will Bad Lose, and then follow the show at LTB Vikings. Smash the subscribe button and the like button and share it with your friends. We love you guys. We love being able to get on here and talk about nonsense once a week, and it's a lot of fun. My final thoughts are just going to be, I would be shocked if the Vikings don't have a top 3 draft pick mid-April. Like before the draft. I don't think this is going to be a draft day trade up. I think they're going to trade up to 2 or 3, and they're going to have to move heaven and earth to do it, because Washington would love Drake May or Jaden Daniels. One of those 3. New England would love to get that quarterback, but I think the Vikings are going to have to make that offer that you can't refuse. They're going to throw in a bunch of picks and a bunch of whatever, and I think they're going to move up, and I would be shocked if they don't, just personally. Unless they sign Coke. If they extend Coke, then I don't think there's any shot they move up, because they need that draft capital to build a team to compete right now. So, assuming Cousins is gone, which I agree with you, I think they are going to move in that direction. And I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again. So, I would be shocked if they don't move up. And like you said, it's very exciting. I think I watched Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels play. I watched a ton of their football this year. They are so flippin' exciting, man. They are just nuts so exciting. But then also, like, so was Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was crazy good. Josh Rosen was crazy good in college. Like, these guys, like, I don't know what the X factor is. No one does. If someone knew what it was, they'd be paid millions of dollars to identify it for teams, and they would go out and get it. And obviously, scheme fit, coaching, all this stuff matters. I'm going to end it with this. I'm going to end my portion of the show anyway with this. I do have a trust in Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings roster that this is a very healthy environment to bring a young quarterback into, preferably Jaden Daniels. I love Jaden Daniels. You bring Jaden Daniels in, O'Connell has an off season to start thinking of things he can do with a crazy mobile quarterback who is also an accurate deliverer of the football. You let him get a rapport with JJ, TJ, Addison, maybe wide receiver 3 TBD, maybe it's Brandon Powell, who knows who it is, but man, it's exciting to think about. But it's also exciting to think that Kirk Cousins might just be dropping dimes for this team next season en route to a Super Bowl. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So I've been Jordan. Will, I'll let you take us home.
Yeah, I'll jump on that a little bit. There's so much of what happens with the quarterback's development is where they go. Right? Brock Purdy is not Brock Purdy if he ends up in Arizona. He's not Brock Purdy if he ends up in New England, frankly. And so I think you end up with the right coach, and he can do you wonders. And so, I mean, you look at those guys you were just referencing, Josh Rosen and whoever the other guy was.
Trubisky.
I mean, you end up with defensive coaches. Granted, Trubisky ended up with Matt Nagy, so that's not quite the same. But if you end up with a defensive coach, or maybe not a friendly coach to you or whatever, like things can go wrong, things can go sideways. And I think to your point, I think I would trust the Vikings with their offensive staff to have the right architecture in place to build up a rookie quarterback if they get the right one. And I think they can make one work. So, my final thought, if you know anybody that is a 49ers fan, just give them a hug this week. They saved the Vikings from an offseason, us Vikings fans from an offseason of either the Packers or the Lions representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, and that would have been just something. So if you know any 49ers fans, just give them a hug and tell them you appreciate them. That's all I got. We'll see you next week. We'll talk a lot about draft strategy next week. We're gonna be diving into this whole, who you trade up, who you trading up with, who you trading up for, how much you giving up. Yep. A lot of those things. We're gonna get into that next week, and then it's gonna be crazy town. Draft until
and free
the end of
agency.
April.
We get free agency
and free agency. Free agency happens too.
Do we do an emergency show if Kirk Cousins does sign with another team? Do we come on and do we do like a tribute show with do we wear black like a funeral? I think we might have to discuss.
We probably have to. We got to do something.
Who's been the quarterback that's done as much as Kirk Cousins has done for the Vikings? I know Brett Favre had one good year, but Cousins has been consistent. I don't know. We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cousins can't become a free agent until March, but a lot can happen in the next month, and there's going to be a lot to talk about. So I've been Will. That's Jordan. We'll see you next week, and Skull y'all.